Go watch Jay's video, but she's doing some research into what Jeffrey Epstein was up to while he was on his work release. And during the course of her research, she finds that there was at least one lawsuit filed by at least a Caitlin Doe against Epstein, claiming that he was continuing his business as usual. He flew her in from New York and abused her in his office. And based on my own research, I know that there were other girls who also said they were abused in his office during that period of time while he was on work release. Here's the problem. Last night I watched that Filthy Rich documentary on Netflix. And in it, I see a couple of things, right? The police chief at the time that this all went down is very upset, okay? This guy was involved in the investigation. It was his deputies and his detectives that were talking to victims, who were compiling a case, who presented their case to the state attorney's office. And when the state attorney's office decided to just file 2 charges, he sent out a letter personally to the victims where he said, this is not justice, this is fucked up, and I'm referring this case to the Federal Bureau of Investigations. That's how Alex Acosta got involved. This poor chief thought that something was going to happen if the FBI got involved, because he just thought it stunk so bad. Something was fishy. In any day of the week with any other defendant, this would have been hundreds of counts. And they're just filing these 2. And they have victims that are willing to testify. Anyway, so he's upset, and he's like, Alex Acosta owes everyone an explanation for why, when he got involved, the situation got better for Jeffrey Epstein, because now suddenly not only is he only having these 2 counts, but also a promise that no federal investigation will ever come against Jeffrey Epstein or his known and unknown co-conspirators. But then fast forward, and there's another cop, different cop, who's saying there was nothing not kosher about the work release, because anyone who meets the criteria could also do the same thing Jeffrey did from day one. From day one of going to jail, you're allowed to apparently apply for work release. And I couldn't remember how much it was. I knew it was 6 figures, but in this documentary, they said that one of the requirements was that Jeffrey Epstein had to be able to pay for a sheriff's deputy to be posted up with him while he was on his work release 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. From 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., a deputy was supposed to be with him, okay? And this is between 2008 and 2009. And this cop, whoever the fuck he was very proud to show the documentarians how it was at a rate of $47 an hour, and this is how much Jeffrey ended up paying, $128,000. But here's the thing. That documentary came out in May of 2020. But in July of 2019, the sheriff's office couldn't tell this local news station why the fuck Jeffrey Epstein's nonprofit that he was supposed to be doing work at, why his nonprofit had paid the sheriff's office $130,000. So he was allegedly doing work for his nonprofit while he was on work release. And so this local news agency said that the foundation that he was working at appears to be the same Epstein Foundation, which paid PBSO nearly $130,000 between October 2008 and May of 2009. And they also couldn't get any financial records for the nonprofit. Records which show exactly how PBSO spent the nearly $130,000 or why Epstein paid them in the first place were not immediately available. Contact 5 has requested receipts from PBSO and are waiting on a response. And the thing is, at the time that this article was printed in July of 2019, the reporter that's writing this article is in communications with PBSO. They just weren't able to tell the reporter why the $130,000 was paid. This person was in communications to the extent that they were able to ask them, well, why was a convicted sex offender like Epstein given work release? And the PBSO was able to say sex offenders are not allowed to go on work release, but that he wasn't registered as a sex offender until after his release. But he was a convicted sex offender at that point. Of course, you're not registering until after you get out of fucking jail, but it's evident they just didn't even know what to say. But they were able to say this, but they couldn't answer. They couldn't say why he paid them $130,000 at that point, but they came up with something by the time the documentary started filming. They also put in a follow-up request for the total number of convicted sex offenders who also received work release. Still waiting on a response. But the same lawyer, Brad Edwards, who has represented a lot of Jeffrey Epstein's victims and is also featured in that docuseries, says that he has multiple girls, victims, who said that they were abused at his office during this time that he was on work release. And Jay found one of those lawsuits. No lawyer is taking on a case like this unless the victims can corroborate it somehow. That means they had text messages, they had call logs, they had emails, they had flight records. There's corroborating evidence. No lawyer is taking a case like this, which, by the way, is always on contingency. They're not working for free. Of course, this Contact 5 also asks them about that. And this is their response. He was picked up by a driver, met by PBSO deputy at his place of employment, which stayed with him the entire time he was at his office. He was allowed no family, friends, or guests, his attorney or business partner only. Over 464 reports were filed by the deputies stating things like, he had no visitors, his attorney visited, he had a doctor's appointment today, etc. No visits from family, friends, or guests. And if he violated the conditions, he would have been brought back. This was PBSO's email response. The bold, all of this stuff was PBSO's own email. They mentioned that there were deputies there. They mentioned all of that. They were able to give this answer, but they still couldn't say what the $130,000 was for. Were they charging $47 an hour per deputy or not? Because that seems like a pretty simple thing to answer if it were true. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying, if it were true, couldn't they have just said that was the hourly rate? That $130,000 was the total hourly rate for the officers? And apparently there's a YouTube video that you can refer to, because apparently the PBSO public relations team made a video to address it. Really? Your PR team needed to make this video? If we're just talking about the truth, why? I think PBSO does protest too much. So I don't know. Was that $130,000 for hourly rates of officers who all are apparently saying that no one went in, and yet there must be corroborated testimony from multiple victims saying that they were abused at his office during the time that he was on work release? Where were the officers posted? Outside of the building that had like 15 floors or more, that had multiple businesses running out of it? Or were they in the office with him? How did they verify whether or not anyone... I've got questions. I think it's very fishy that in 2019, they could not say that the reason that Epstein paid $130,000 to PBSO was because of the hourly rate of the deputies. But during that same time, they could say that there were officers with him. I think it's real funny that they have a policy against sex offenders, registered sex offenders being on work release, but it doesn't apply until after they've registered. Forget about the fact that they've been convicted of the crime. I don't know. I'm starting to think that maybe Jeffrey Epstein never went to that jail. Not from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. Not at all. Because what the fuck is going on here? My bad. One more thing. In the documentary, we also learn that Jeffrey Epstein, when he moved into town, went to PBSO day one and said, hey, do you guys need anything? He was very busy. We could tell he was a very busy and important guy. So he gave them about $100,000 then. So when the calls start coming in from the female victims and from their parents, people weren't taking it that seriously. Call me crazy for thinking that $130,000 subsequently would buy him freedom from jail or from actual scrutiny, actually having a deputy watch him, in my opinion.